that it arrives because of the economy, timing, or opportunity. But the future doesn't respond to hope. It responds to habits. Right now, this very moment, you are voting for the person you will become in 2026, not with big decisions, with the smallest ones. What you do daily decides whether your future feels secure or uncertain, peaceful or stressful, aligned or reactive. And here's why you must listen to this entire speech. Because one of these habits, just one, could quietly change the trajectory of your next decade. Miss it, and you'll repeat the same year again. Master it. And 2026 becomes the year everything finally stabilizes. Let's begin. Most people don't realize that the first few minutes of their day quietly decide the direction of everything that follows. Before their feet touch the ground, their mind is already crowded. Notifications light up the screen. Messages demand replies. Headlines pull attention toward fear, urgency, or comparison. Without noticing, the day begins in response mode, and once you start reacting, you rarely regain control. You may stay busy, but you are no longer intentional. You are moving, but not necessarily moving forward. When you wake up and immediately consume information, you allow the world to set your priorities for you. Other people's problems become urgent. Other people's expectations become heavy. Other people's emotions begin to influence your own. The danger is not the information itself. The danger is timing. Information before intention creates confusion. It turns capable people into reactive ones. It replaces clarity with noise before you've even asked yourself who you need to be today. Secure futures are never built this way. Stability, clarity, and direction do not come from reacting faster than everyone else. They come from deciding first. Intention is a choice you make before anything else tries to choose for you. It is the quiet moment where you remind yourself that this day belongs to you before it belongs to anyone else. That moment does not require motivation, excitement, or perfect conditions. It only requires honesty. Before the world gets a vote, you decide who you are today, not who you want to be someday, not who you were yesterday, who you are choosing to be today, calm or reactive, focused or scattered, disciplined or distracted. Identity always comes before behavior. When you define who you are first, your actions naturally align. A person who decides, today I am someone who keeps my word, behaves differently than someone who never pauses to define themselves. That single decision quietly shapes how they speak, work, and respond under pressure. You also decide what truly matters today. Not everything matters equally, even though everything may feel urgent. Intention forces you to separate importance from noise. It helps you see the difference between what demands attention and what deserves attention. When you begin your day without this clarity, you risk spending your best energy on things that will not move your life forward. You become efficient at the wrong tasks, busy with activities that look productive, but leave you unfulfilled. And then there is the question most people avoid because it requires courage. What must not be compromised today? Every day will test something important to you. Your values, your standards, your health, your focus, your boundaries. If you don't decide in advance what will not be sacrificed, the decision will be made for you in moments of pressure. Compromise rarely arrives loudly. It whispers. It shows up as just this once. Intention gives you a line you refuse to cross, even when it would be easier to step over it. 5 quiet minutes of intention may seem insignificant, but they create a powerful shift. Those minutes act like a compass. They do not remove obstacles, but they keep you oriented. Without them, even small disruptions feel overwhelming. With them, challenges become manageable because you know what you stand for. Chaos does not disappear, but it loses control over you. You may still face demands, interruptions, and uncertainty, but you are no longer lost inside them. Many people believe that structure limits freedom. In reality, intention creates it. When you begin the day intentionally, you stop negotiating with yourself all day long. You no longer ask, should I do this? Or should I respond to that? You already decided that decision saves mental energy. And mental energy is one of the most valuable resources you have. When it's protected, you think clearly. When it is drained early, even simple choices feel exhausting. This habit does not make your day easier. It makes your day honest. It forces you to face reality instead of hiding behind distraction. It reminds you that your future is shaped by how you show up when no one is watching. That 5-minute pause is not about planning every detail. It is about alignment. It is about ensuring that your actions reflect your values, not just your circumstances. When intention leads, information becomes useful instead of overwhelming. Messages no longer control you, they inform you. News no longer dictates your mood, it simply updates you. Other people's priorities no longer hijack your focus. They are evaluated through your own standards. You remain open, but not vulnerable to every demand. You stay informed, but not consumed. Over time, this habit changes something deeper. You begin to trust yourself. You see that you can choose your response instead of reacting automatically. That trust builds confidence. And confidence is not loud. It is calm. It is the quiet certainty that you can handle what comes because you are grounded in who you are. When days are lived this way, the future feels less threatening. Not because nothing goes wrong, but because you are no longer drifting. You are steering. And that is what security really is. Not control over the world, but control over how you enter it each day. A secure future is rarely the result of one dramatic decision or a single breakthrough moment. Most people are waiting for that moment. They believe that one opportunity, one promotion, one lucky break will suddenly stabilize everything. But real security is far quieter than that. It is built slowly, almost invisibly, through small deposits made day after day, not in bursts of motivation, but in consistency, not through urgency, but through intention. Deposits work because they respect reality. They acknowledge that progress compounds. One skill practiced today may feel insignificant, but practiced again tomorrow, and the next day it begins to reshape who you are. Skills don't grow in leaps, they grow in layers. Every repetition strengthens a foundation that cannot be taken away by circumstances. When the world shifts, when industries change, when opportunities disappear, skills remain. They travel with you. That is why one future building task a day matters more than 1,000 unfinished plans. The same principle applies to relationships. Most people only invest in relationships when there is a problem, a need, or a benefit. But secure futures are built by people who strengthen relationships before they are required. A thoughtful message, a sincere check-in, a moment of presence without distraction. These actions do not feel urgent, which is why they are often ignored. Yet when challenges arrive, it is these quiet investments that provide support, opportunity, and resilience. Relationships like skills reward consistency, not intensity. Financial security works the same way. It is rarely destroyed in one reckless moment. It erodes slowly through neglect, impulsive decisions, and avoidance, and it is rarely built through sudden wealth alone. It grows through habits. Choosing to save a little, choosing to learn how money works, choosing patience over impulse. These choices are not exciting. They don't create stories people tell, but they create stability, and stability creates freedom. The most dangerous tasks are not the hard ones. They are the quiet ones that don't demand immediate attention. They don't shout. They don't create pressure. They simply wait. And because they wait, they are easy to postpone. Important tasks are rarely urgent, and urgent tasks are rarely important. A future building task almost never feels like it must be done today. It simply benefits from being done today. That is why the question matters. What did I do today that my future self will thank me for? This question shifts your focus from immediate comfort to long-term alignment. It forces you to step outside the present moment and consider consequences beyond tonight. It encourages responsibility without guilt, because the goal is not to judge yourself, but to guide yourself. When the answer is nothing, most people respond with shame. They tell themselves they are lazy, undisciplined, or incapable. But shame doesn't build futures. Awareness does. Nothing is not a verdict. It is feedback. It tells you that the day was spent maintaining life, not building it. And there is a difference. Maintenance keeps you where you are. Building moves you forward. Feedback is useful because it points to adjustment, not identity. It says, this approach didn't move the needle, not you are a failure. Secure people understand this distinction. They don't attach their worth to one day's output. They use information to refine behavior. Tomorrow becomes an opportunity to make a different deposit, not a punishment for yesterday. One future building task a day also removes overwhelm. Most people avoid thinking about the future because it feels too big, too complex, too uncertain. So they do nothing. But one small action is manageable. Anyone can read a few pages. Practice a skill for 10 minutes. Reach out to one person. Review one financial habit. Progress becomes approachable when it is broken down into daily deposits. This habit also builds trust with yourself. Every time you follow through, even in a small way, you reinforce the belief that you are someone who shows up for your future. That belief is powerful. It changes how you make decisions. You stop abandoning long-term goals for short-term relief because you see yourself as a builder, not a drifter. Identity begins to shift quietly without force. There will be days when energy is low, time is limited, and motivation is absent. That is when this habit matters most, because future security is not built on good days. It is built on ordinary ones, days where the deposit is small but still made. Consistency during average days creates momentum that motivation alone never can. Over time, these deposits begin to compound. Opportunities appear not because of luck, but because you are prepared. Confidence grows not because life is easy, but because you have evidence of discipline. Security starts to feel real, not imagined, because it is backed by action. A secure future does not ask for perfection. It asks for participation. One small act of responsibility today, repeated tomorrow, and again the next day, quietly, patiently, intentionally. Most people are taught to manage their time, but very few are taught to manage their energy. Time is easy to see. It moves on clocks and calendars. It can be measured, scheduled, and tracked. Energy is different. It is invisible, yet it determines everything. Two people can have the same 24 hours and experience completely different results, not because one had more time, but because one protected their energy while the other depleted it without noticing. When people talk about being busy, they are usually talking about time, but exhaustion rarely comes from hours alone. It comes from emotional drain, mental overload, and constant friction. You can have free time and still feel completely depleted. That is because energy is spent not only on work, but on worry, conflict, obligation, and attention given to things that do not matter. Most people do not lose their future in one dramatic failure. They lose it slowly by giving their energy to the wrong things. Every unnecessary argument takes more than minutes. It takes emotional recovery. Every obligation accepted out of guilt costs focus long after it is finished. Every draining conversation lingers in the mind, replaying again and again, stealing clarity and peace. These energy leaks rarely feel dangerous in the moment, but over time, they leave you too tired to build anything meaningful. Energy is what allows consistency, and consistency is what creates security. Without energy, even the best plans fail. You may know what to do, but lack the strength to do it. You may have goals, but no capacity to pursue them. Protecting your energy is not about doing less. It is about doing what matters with intention and presence. This is why secure people say no more often than they say. It's not out of arrogance, not out of selfishness, but out of clarity. They understand that every yes is a silent no to something else. When you say yes to something that drains you, you are often saying no to focus, growth, rest, or progress. Secure people are willing to disappoint others temporarily to avoid disappointing themselves permanently. Many people struggle with boundaries because they confuse them with rejection. They believe that saying no means being unkind or ungrateful. In reality, boundaries are not walls, they are filters. They allow what aligns to enter and keep what drains outside. When boundaries are absent, energy is constantly pulled in directions that do not serve your future. When boundaries are clear, energy is preserved for what truly matters. Energy is also consumed by internal habits, not just external demands. Overthinking drains energy. Comparing yourself to others drains energy. Carrying unresolved resentment drains energy. These patterns may not show up on a schedule, but they quietly exhaust you. Protecting your energy requires awareness of what occupies your mind, not just your calendar. Intentional people learn to recognize what refuels them and what depletes them. Some activities may look productive but leave you mentally empty. Others may appear small but restore clarity and strength. Protecting energy means designing your days around sustainability, not just output. It means pacing yourself so that progress is repeatable, not just impressive. There is also a deeper truth: energy follows meaning. When you understand why something matters, you naturally bring more energy to it. When you are unclear or misaligned, even simple tasks feel heavy. This is why doing less of what doesn't matter creates more energy for what does. Clarity is energizing, confusion is exhausting. Protecting your energy does not mean avoiding effort. It means choosing effort wisely. Growth requires strain, but not all strain is equal. Some effort builds strength. Other effort only creates fatigue. The difference lies in alignment. Effort aligned with your values strengthens you. Effort driven by obligation or fear drains you. Over time, people who protect their energy begin to look calm, focused, and steady. Others may mistake this for ease or privilege, but it is the result of many quiet decisions. Decisions to walk away from pointless conflict. Decisions to decline invitations that do not align. Decisions to rest without guilt. Decisions to invest energy where it compounds instead of where it disappears. When energy is treated as a currency, spending becomes intentional. You stop wasting it on things that do not produce return. You invest it where it grows skill, trust, health, and clarity. And just like money, energy invested wisely multiplies. Energy spent carelessly leaves you bankrupt, no matter how much time you have. Protecting your energy is not about controlling others. It is about taking responsibility for yourself. It is a daily practice of choosing sustainability over approval, clarity over chaos, and long-term security over short-term comfort. Progress does not begin with motivation, talent, or opportunity. It begins with honesty, not the polished honesty we offer others, not the version designed to protect our image, but the quiet honesty we practice when no one is watching. The kind that happens in still moments, when excuses fall away and only truth remains. This is where real growth starts, because nothing meaningful can be built on denial. Most people avoid this kind of honesty because it is uncomfortable. It forces you to confront the gap between who you believe you are and how you actually showed up. It asks questions that do not flatter the ego. Did I give my best effort today, or did I coast? Did I focus on what mattered, or did I distract myself to avoid discomfort? Did I choose growth, or did I choose comfort because it was easier in the moment? These questions are powerful because they do not accuse, they reveal. And revelation is not punishment. It is clarity. Without clarity, improvement is impossible. You cannot change what you refuse to see. Daily honesty turns the mirror toward your behavior instead of your intentions. Intentions are easy to defend. Behavior tells the truth. Self-deception often sounds reasonable. It dresses itself as logic. I was too tired. It wasn't the right time. I'll do it tomorrow. Individually, these thoughts seem harmless. Collectively, they create a pattern of delay and avoidance. Over time, this pattern becomes an identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who plans, promises, and postpones, not because you lack ability, but because you avoid truth. Honesty interrupts this cycle. It replaces stories with facts. It does not ask why things didn't happen in a way that protects your feelings. It asks what actually happened. That distinction matters because reasons comfort you, but facts move you forward. Practicing daily honesty does not mean judging yourself harshly. It means observing yourself accurately. There is a difference. Judgment says, I am failing. Honesty says, this choice didn't align with what I said mattered. One creates shame. The other creates responsibility. Shame leads to avoidance. Responsibility leads to adjustment. When you ask yourself if you showed up fully today, you are not demanding perfection. You are asking for presence. Full presence does not mean flawless execution. It means engaged effort. It means you did not abandon yourself halfway through the day. Even partial effort, when acknowledged honestly, builds awareness. And awareness is the foundation of change. The question of avoidance is equally important. Many people are busy all day and still avoid what matters most. They fill time with tasks that feel productive because they are safe. They delay the difficult conversation. They postpone the challenging work. They choose familiarity over progress. Honesty exposes this pattern gently but firmly. It brings the avoided task into the light where it can no longer hide behind business. Choosing comfort over growth is perhaps the most difficult truth to face because comfort feels justified. After all, life is hard, rest is necessary, but honesty helps you distinguish between recovery and escape. Recovery restores energy so you can grow. Escape keeps you stagnant while convincing you that you deserve it. Without honesty, these two become indistinguishable. Daily honesty builds self-trust. When you tell yourself the truth consistently, you begin to believe yourself. Promises start to mean something. Commitments feel real. You stop negotiating with your own standards because you know you will hold yourself accountable with fairness, not cruelty. This habit also reduces anxiety. Much of anxiety comes from unresolved truth, from knowing deep down that something is being avoided. When you face reality daily, even uncomfortable reality, your mind becomes calmer. There is less mental noise, less internal conflict. Clarity replaces confusion. An insecure future is rarely caused by a lack of opportunity. It is caused by a long relationship with self-deception. Small lies told daily compound into large disappointments later. Honest reflection breaks that pattern early. It keeps you aligned with reality instead of illusion. Daily honesty does not change everything at once. It changes direction. And direction, sustained over time, changes outcomes. When truth becomes a habit, progress becomes inevitable, not because life becomes easy, but because you stop lying to yourself about what it requires. Most people arrive at the end of the day feeling exhausted, yet strangely unfulfilled. They were busy, stimulated, and constantly engaged. But when the noise settles, there is a quiet emptiness. The reason is simple and uncomfortable. They consumed all day, but they created nothing. Their energy went outward instead of inward. Their attention was spent reacting to what already exists instead of building something new. Consumption kept them occupied, but creation would have given the day meaning. Consumption is easy. It requires no risk, no responsibility, and ownership. You scroll, watch, listen, and it feels productive because information is moving, but nothing is being shaped. Creation is different. Creation demands effort. It asks you to think, to decide, to express, to build something that did not exist before. That is why it is often postponed. Not because people are incapable, because creation exposes you. It shows where you are strong and where you are not. Consumption hides that truth. A secure future belongs to creators because creators develop agency. When you create, you prove to yourself that you are not merely a consumer of circumstances, but a contributor to outcomes. Writing before you scroll is not about rejecting information. It is about establishing your voice before absorbing others. Thinking before you watch is not about avoiding learning. It is about forming opinions before adopting them. Building before you browse is not about discipline alone. It is about identity. Identity is shaped by repeated action. When your days begin with consumption, you begin to see yourself as someone who reacts, responds, and follows. When your days begin with creation, even in small ways, you begin to see yourself as someone who initiates. That shift changes everything. Confidence grows not from praise, but from evidence. Creation provides that evidence quietly, day after day. Consumption weakens identity because it trains passivity. Over time, you begin to measure your value by what you absorb rather than what you produce. You feel informed but not capable, entertained but not fulfilled, motivated temporarily but unchanged long-term. Motivation fades because it is borrowed energy. Creation generates its own energy because it is rooted in ownership. Even a small act of building has a disproportionate impact. 20 minutes of focused creation daily may not feel impressive, but it compounds faster than motivation ever will. Motivation is emotional and unpredictable. Some days it appears, most days it does not. Creation, practiced as a habit, removes the need for motivation. You show up because that is who you are, not because you feel inspired. Creation also sharpens clarity. When you create, you must decide what matters. You must filter ideas, prioritize direction, and accept imperfection. This process strengthens thinking. Consumption often clouds thinking by flooding it with options, opinions, and comparisons. Creation simplifies because it demands choice. There is also a deeper psychological effect. Creation builds resilience. When you build something, you learn to tolerate discomfort, uncertainty, and slow progress. You stop expecting instant results. You become patient with the process. That patience is a cornerstone of long-term security. People who expect immediate payoff rarely sustain effort long enough to build anything meaningful. Many people say they don't have time to create, but what they often mean is that they are giving their best energy to consumption. Attention is being spent on endless inputs before any output is attempted. By the time creation is considered, energy is gone. Building before consuming reverses that order. It ensures that your best mental resources are invested in your future, not in distraction. Creation does not have to be public to be powerful. It does not need validation to matter. A private journal, a skill practiced quietly, a plan refined, a system built. These are acts of creation that shape your future regardless of recognition. The reward is not applause. The reward is alignment. Over time, days that begin with creation feel different. They end with substance instead of emptiness. You may still consume, but consumption becomes intentional, not automatic. Information becomes a tool, not a trap. And slowly, without dramatic change, your future begins to reflect what you consistently build instead of what you passively consume. Most people believe discipline begins in the mind. They think that if they could just think differently, feel more motivated, or find the right mindset, everything would change. But discipline is rarely born from thought alone. It is trained through action, and more specifically, through physical action. The body is often the gateway to the mind. not the other way around. When you move your body consistently, you are not just exercising muscles, you are conditioning your mind to follow through. The body understands effort in a way the mind cannot rationalize away. The mind negotiates. It looks for shortcuts, excuses, and reasons to delay. The body responds to command. When you tell it to move and it moves, a lesson is taught that no motivational speech can replace. The lesson is simple but powerful. Action does not require perfect feelings. You can do hard things even when you don't feel like it. This message, repeated daily through movement, reshapes identity. You stop seeing discipline as something you either have or don't have. You begin to see it as something you practice. Each workout, walk, stretch, or physical challenge becomes a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. Over time, those votes add up to certainty. And certainty creates confidence. Security does not come from comfort. Comfort feels good in the moment, but it weakens your ability to respond to stress. A life built entirely around ease becomes fragile. The moment discomfort arrives, everything feels overwhelming. Capability, on the other hand, creates security. When your body is strong, your mind trusts itself to endure. When your body is trained, your mind believes it can handle pressure. Physical movement teaches resilience in a direct and honest way. There is resistance, there is fatigue, there is the urge to stop, and then there is the choice to continue. That choice, made repeatedly, strengthens more than muscle. It strengthens resolve. It proves that discomfort is temporary and survivable. This understanding transfers to every area of life. Difficult conversations feel less intimidating. Long-term goals feel more attainable. Stress feels manageable. A resilient mind is not one that avoids difficulty, but one that has evidence of endurance. Physical training provides that evidence. You remember times you wanted to quit and didn't. You remember effort sustained beyond comfort. These memories become internal references during mental challenges. The body reminds the mind of its capacity. Movement also brings clarity. Stress accumulates in the body before it shows up in the mind. Physical activity releases tension that words cannot. It clears mental fog and restores emotional balance. Many problems feel unsolvable when the body is stagnant. After movement, perspective shifts. Problems don't disappear, but they become less overwhelming. The mind becomes quieter, more focused, more present. Daily movement does not require intensity to be effective. It requires consistency. The goal is not exhaustion. The goal is reliability. Showing up daily, even for a short session, reinforces the habit of self-leadership. You keep promises to yourself. That trust compounds. And when you trust yourself physically, it becomes easier to trust yourself mentally and emotionally. There is also a deeper connection between physical strength and emotional stability. When the body is neglected, emotions become harder to regulate. Energy fluctuates. Focus suffers. When the body is cared for, emotions stabilize. Sleep improves. Decision-making sharpens. This stability creates a sense of control that is essential for long-term security. Resilience is not built in moments of ease. It is built through repeated exposure to manageable stress. Physical training provides controlled stress. You choose it, you face it, you recover from it. This cycle mirrors life itself. Challenges arise, effort is required, recovery follows. When you train this cycle intentionally, life's challenges feel familiar rather than threatening. A secure future is not one without hardship. It is one led by someone capable of facing hardship. A strong body supports a resilient mind, and a resilient mind builds a stable life. Movement becomes more than exercise. It becomes a daily reminder of your strength, your discipline, and your ability to keep going when comfort would be easier. Most people move through their days at full speed, carrying experiences forward without ever stopping to process them. One day blends into the next, and weeks pass without clarity about what is actually changing. Effort is made, but progress feels uncertain. The problem is not lack of action. It is lack of reflection. Experience alone does not create wisdom. Experience, when examined, does. Reviewing your day before it repeats is a quiet but powerful habit. It creates a pause between what happened and what happens next. In that pause, learning lives. Without it, life becomes a loop. The same frustrations appear, the same mistakes resurface, the same patterns quietly repeat, not because you are incapable of change, but because nothing is being observed closely enough to be improved. Asking what worked today shifts your attention toward effectiveness instead of emotion. It helps you identify behaviors, choices, and moments that produced positive results. These may seem small: a focused work session, a calm response, a boundary respected, a task completed without delay. Noticing what worked reinforces useful patterns. It tells your mind, this direction is worth repeating. Progress grows faster when success is acknowledged, even in modest forms. Asking what didn't work requires courage. It invites discomfort, but not judgment. This question is not about blaming yourself. It is about understanding friction. What drained energy? What caused distraction? What created unnecessary stress? Without reflection, these moments are forgotten or justified. With reflection, they become data, and data allows improvement. The question of what must change tomorrow is where reflection becomes action. Reflection without adjustment is simply awareness. Adjustment transforms awareness into progress. This question encourages experimentation, not perfection. You are not redesigning your life overnight. You are making small corrections to direction, a slightly earlier start, a clearer boundary, a different approach to a recurring problem. Without reflection, days repeat because nothing interrupts the pattern. You wake up, react, rush, and rest, only to do it again. Time passes, but growth stalls. With reflection, each day becomes a draft instead of a final version. You are allowed to revise. You are allowed to learn. You are allowed to evolve. This habit also reduces regret. Regret often comes from realizing too late what should have been done differently. Daily reflection shortens that gap. You catch misalignment early. You notice drift before it becomes distance. Small adjustments prevent large corrections later. Your future does not need perfection because perfection is unrealistic and paralyzing. It creates pressure to get everything right, which often leads to doing nothing at all. Adjustment is different. Adjustment assumes imperfection. It expects learning. It welcomes refinement. This mindset removes fear and replaces it with curiosity. Reflection also builds self-awareness. Over time, patterns emerge. You begin to see what environments support you and which ones drain you. You notice what habits lead to clarity and which lead to chaos. This awareness allows you to design your days more intentionally instead of relying on willpower alone. There is a calming effect to daily review. It brings closure to the day. Instead of carrying unfinished thoughts into sleep, you release them through acknowledgement. The mind rests easier when it feels heard. Clarity replaces mental clutter. This habit does not require long journaling sessions or elaborate systems. It requires honesty and consistency. A few minutes of intentional thought can prevent months of repeated frustration. Small reflections, practiced daily, compound into wisdom that no book or advice can replace. When reflection becomes routine, life feels less random. You begin to see cause and effect. You recognize that your actions shape outcomes. That understanding creates confidence, not because life is predictable, but because you are adaptable. Days improve not because they become easier, but because you become more aware. And awareness, applied consistently, turns ordinary days into building blocks for a secure future. The way you end your day quietly shapes the way you live your life. Most people fall asleep carrying noise, regret, and unfinished thoughts into the night. Their minds replay what went wrong, what wasn't enough, what is still missing. They wake up the next morning already tired, already behind, already chasing. Gratitude and direction change that pattern completely. They do not deny reality. They organize it. Gratitude anchors you because it brings you back to what is real and solid. At the end of the day, when everything slows down, gratitude reminds you that you are not starting from zero. No matter how imperfect the day was, something went right. Something supported you, something moved you forward, even slightly. When you intentionally recognize that, your nervous system settles, tension softens, perspective widens. Gratitude is not pretending everything is fine. It is choosing to see clearly instead of narrowly. Without gratitude, the mind fixates on gaps and problems. With gratitude, the mind regains balance. You stop defining your life by what is missing and start recognizing what is already working. That recognition builds emotional stability, and emotional stability is a form of security many people underestimate. Direction, on the other hand, pulls you forward. Gratitude keeps you grounded, but direction keeps you moving. When you end the day knowing where you are going next, you remove uncertainty from tomorrow. Even if the path is not fully clear, having a next step calms the mind. It replaces vague anxiety with focused anticipation. Before sleep, reminding yourself of what you are grateful for does something powerful. It closes the day with meaning. It signals to your mind that the day is complete, that it can rest. Sleep becomes deeper because the mind is not fighting unresolved tension. Rest becomes restorative instead of restless. Reminding yourself of where you are going next opens tomorrow with clarity. You wake up with intention instead of confusion. You don't have to search for motivation because direction is already set. The mind does not waste energy asking, what should I do? It moves naturally toward what matters. This simple practice creates continuity between days. Life stops feeling like disconnected moments and starts feeling like a deliberate journey. Each day becomes a chapter, not a random page. That sense of continuity builds trust in yourself and in the process you are following. Most people miss this truth because they are looking for dramatic change. They believe security comes from one big break, one major opportunity, one moment where everything suddenly clicks. But that moment rarely arrives the way they imagine. And even when it does, it cannot sustain a future on its own. A secure future in 2026 will not be created by luck or timing alone. It will be created by habits practiced quietly when no one is watching, gratitude practiced even on difficult days, direction maintained even when progress feels slow. These habits do not produce instant results, which is why they are often overlooked, but they produce lasting results because they shape how you think, feel, and act every single day. Practicing gratitude consistently changes how you interpret life. You become less reactive and more resilient. Challenges no longer feel like threats to your identity. They feel like part of a process you trust. Direction practiced consistently changes how you move through life. You stop drifting. You stop reacting. You begin choosing. Trusting these habits patiently is perhaps the hardest part. The results are subtle at first. There is no applause. No immediate validation, but something important is happening beneath the surface. You are becoming stable. You're becoming clear. You're becoming someone who can be relied on by yourself. Over time, this combination of gratitude and direction creates inner security. And inner security eventually shows up as outer stability. Decisions become calmer. Reactions become measured. Confidence becomes quiet but firm. You no longer need constant reassurance because your habits provide it. The future you want is not abstract. It is shaped by what you repeat daily. It is paying attention to how you close your days as much as how you start them. It is understanding that peace comes from alignment, not achievement. The future is already watching the choices you make tonight. It is watching what you focus on before sleep. It is watching whether you end the day with resentment or appreciation, with confusion or clarity. Those small moments are not insignificant. They are the foundation. And the only real question that remains is not whether the future will arrive. It will. The question is whether the habits you practice today are strong enough, steady enough, and intentional enough